Detroit's Cass Corridor. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Kerry Jr. II.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Today on the show, Detroit's new mayor, Mary Sheffield, takes office with big promises on jobs, housing, and neighborhood investment. We'll ask how she can turn those promises into progress.
Plus, healthcare is back in the spotlight. Federal subsidies that have been helping keep insurance premiums affordable are set to expire next year, and the fight over whether to extend them is central to the government shutdown.
We'll hear from a local doctor who's testing a different kind of medicine, one that cuts out insurance altogether.
The shutdown is hitting close to home in other ways, too, slowing down local efforts to help people without housing just as winter sets in. We'll look at what that means for Detroit's safety net.
And later, 50 years after the Edmund Fitzgerald went down, we dive into how its story still rises to the surface across the Great Lakes.
From the forces that shape Metro Detroit to the moments that challenge it, this is the Metro.
We begin by turning the page of Detroit's next chapter. Mayor-elect Mary Sheffield ran on several promises: creating job opportunities for young people, improving schools, investing in neighborhoods. That's not for no reason. Detroit has a lot of poverty, and that means a lot of crime, and there aren't enough job opportunities. So as Sheffield transitions from council president to mayor, we want to know, how are residents reacting to her victory? What do they hope she accomplishes? And what kinds of organizing and coalition building will the new mayor have to do to live up to her promises? To discuss all this now, we have Donna Givens-Davidson here with us. She's the president of the Eastside Community Network and the co-host of the Authentically Detroit podcast. Donna, welcome to the Metro.
Well, thank you for having me here. I feel like I'm back at home. You know, we recorded here for a couple of years, and so, yeah, this is very comfortable.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
So, Mary Sheffield, she
Yes.
won by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm.
She got 77% of the votes. It's pretty remarkable. Now, you run the Eastside Community Network. I'm wondering, how are people in your organization's orbit reacting to her victory?
I think we're thrilled. I have heard nothing but positive feedback. It was a hard-fought campaign. And people, when you're campaigning for mayor, people get emotional. And the kinds of challenges that we're facing in Detroit are the kinds of challenges, and we faced them my entire lifetime here, right? But they're the kinds of things that cause struggle, right? You have the issues of homelessness.
Yeah.
You have issues of crime. It's never not been an issue for as long as I can remember, but it doesn't matter. If you are a victim of crime or somebody you know is a victim of crime, then that becomes your whole world. And statistics don't really matter. So I think it's hard to have conversations about that from a statistical point of view. People feel very strongly about how the city has been redeveloping, and a lot of residents don't feel as though there has been investment in their neighborhoods for good reason. I mean, it's not as though, policies have been in place under this previous mayor that have prioritized downtown development for many reasons. And so when you have a mayor who comes with a vision, who not only understands that there's crime, but also has been investing in and supporting community violence intervention as a mechanism to reduce crime, then you start seeing a person with a vision for the future. When you have a mayor who has been more connected to the neighborhoods, in fact, has lived in the neighborhoods they're trying to lead, that's a lot different than somebody who really does not have firsthand experience where we are. And so I think people feel connected. Mary Sheffield is not just the first woman mayor of Detroit, but she is. And she's definitely the first black woman mayor of, woman of any race and ethnicity, but she's the youngest black woman elected mayor of a major city in history in the United States. And that's so significant because it also speaks to young voices becoming more relevant.
I want to talk about that power for a moment, if we could, a little more.
Yes.
Of Mary Sheffield being so many firsts.
Right.
And how that has the potential to really galvanize people. I mean, you're talking about young people potentially being galvanized. And I think Mayor-elect Sheffield understood that potential. You could see that with her social media presence. Talk a little bit more about this opportunity, because she has so many firsts, to animate the city.
Well, I mean, I was born into a different Detroit than the Detroit that exists right now. People my age have so many memories and so much nostalgia for things that don't exist anymore. Mary Sheffield is about the age of some of my children, and they were born into a whole different Detroit. And they're living in a Detroit. They don't have those nostalgic memories. What they've seen is a city that has been in the process of being dismantled their entire lives. And they also came of age when there's a climate crisis. Young people struggle to purchase homes because housing is no longer as affordable as it was when I was young.
Right.
That you don't have union jobs in Detroit. You have so many different issues and feelings of abandonment. You know, one of the things that we don't talk about as much as we possibly could, Detroit Future Cities has elevated this information, is that at first we had white flight and then we had middle class flight. And so the reason that Detroit became a concentrated poor city is not just that poor people moved in. It's also that we had people who either aged into poverty, you know, because they no longer had the jobs, or else they left. And we have a lot of people who were economically left behind on a regional basis. And Mary understands that. She's in contact with people. She has been in contact. I mean, she's not new to the community. She is not just young, but she acts like a young person. She connects with young people. At her victory party, she had local, you know, hip hop artists as well as Big Sean performing. And it feels like, you know, their vision of Detroit, their ideals and their imagination for what Detroit could be comes through in her narratives. But I also want to say something that I don't want to leave. Detroiters don't dislike Detroit. Detroiters love Detroit. What up, though, right? That's what we say. I mean, you know, you get, when people come, they sense this pride that Detroiters have among themselves. Mary is able to uplift that pride while at the same time acknowledging that we have challenges. And I think that's what differentiated her from so many people, is this real understanding of who Detroit is right at this moment. So I'm excited about the possibility for leadership by somebody who can really see the people who are here. I don't know if you remember, not too long ago, there was a mural downtown that says something about that depicted Detroit, and this is how they see us, or something like that. And it was mostly white people downtown. And there was a big outcry by people who felt like they were made invisible by what they considered to be the new direction of the city. Mary Sheffield has made the invisible visible in many ways.
So in other words, Mary Sheffield has been able to communicate that Detroit is a city that contains multitudes, that it cannot be painted with broad brush strokes. During her campaign, Sheffield prioritized a lot of things. Let's listen to her talking with me about them.
We have to have great paying jobs. We have to have good schools. We have to have great housing in neighborhoods. It is going to be an environment that we have to cultivate and foster for our young people to be here. Jobs not just of today, but of tomorrow, that will attract young people to this city. And I think we also have to invest a lot more in regional transportation, which I hear a lot from our young people who go to other major cities, is that we're a little bit behind in our transportation.
Okay, so great schools. Good jobs, solid public transit, stable housing. Mary Sheffield really put an emphasis on these things and on attracting young people and trying to support them. So in your eyes, it sounds like she got the needs right. These are the things that Detroiters need city officials to focus most closely on right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a 30-year-old son who lives in L.A., who does not own a car, has not owned a car his entire adult life.
What a dream.
Doesn't have a driver's license, doesn't think he needs one.
Yeah.
And life is more affordable for him because he's not spending money on overpriced car insurance. And he just likes using other, alternative transportation. And LA is not the easiest place to navigate, but he finds a way to do so. I know a lot of people, I know a few young people who've chosen to use transit as a priority. Eric Thomas, the storyteller, is one who really speaks about that. But there are others who don't choose to own private vehicles. And we know that not only are private vehicles expensive, but they're not great for the environment. So getting transit right is really important. Yeah. Figuring out how to expand bus service and paratransit, and also how to, microtransit. I don't know if that's what they call it, but van service to connect people who are not living in dense neighborhoods to transit lines. That's all important. And I think that we're going to hear from some folks who have ideas. There are cities that do it well, and we have to open ourselves up to learn from others. So for so long, it's either been, are we going to have rail lines or not? But there's a whole lot of things that we can do in between rail lines and improving transit and making it more accessible.
So it's not all or nothing.
No.
What about those who voted for Kinloch that you know of? I mean, what do you know about how those folks feel now that he lost? Have you heard concerns that folks feel they won't be represented?
I think that the campaign, like all campaigns, gets contentious. And
Sure.
Unfortunately, towards the end of the campaign, there was a lot of rhetoric about, whether or not you can trust Mary Sheffield to lead an honest government. That seemed to be the turn they were taking. And so people who choose to buy into those types of narratives are going to buy into those types of narratives. There was not, the kind of evidence. The smoking guns felt to me like water guns, but, perhaps they were more effective with some people than others. I think that the election results kind of bear out that truth, that they didn't really land with a kind of emphatic, power that they expected them to. So I don't know. I think that people want to see change. I think that people have got to really listen to what the candidate is saying, and also see what Mary Sheffield is doing over these first 100 days. And I think a lot of them will change their minds. There's hurt feelings, but we've got to heal. And we've got to love each other in Detroit, because there is only one Detroit. We can't afford to be divided into camps. The campaign is over, and it's time that we all come together and hope the mayor succeeds. I really sincerely hope that everybody who voted for anybody else is hoping that we have a successful next 4 years.
The smoking guns were water guns, you said earlier, dropping some kernels here of wisdom. And that's in reference to the campaigning. You're talking about Solomon Kinloch and Mary Sheffield and him pointing fingers at her. I'm wondering, in your sphere, if you were even interacting with that many folks who were Kinloch supporters. I mean, I think about a lot of the different Detroiters that I was speaking with. I didn't end up encountering a lot of Kinloch supporters.
I have friends who are Kinloch supporters.
Yeah, okay.
People who I respect and admire. People support people for all kinds of reasons. And I'm not going to try to evaluate what those reasons are. But I think that a lot of times there's this feeling that we need dramatic change and that the system has not worked for us. And to the extent that Mary Sheffield was part of the system, there was suspicion, there was mistrust. I think also he is a very dynamic and well-loved pastor, and he's engaged in a lot of philanthropy in this community. Unfortunately, a lot of that got overshadowed by some of the campaign rhetoric. But before he ran for mayor, he was a beloved, religious figure. Has the largest church in the state of Michigan, I believe, one of the largest churches in the nation. And so, there's people who just believe in him and believe that he can get things done. So we had two things. You had dramatic change. We need somebody from the outside to come in and fix what's been broken on the inside. I'm not believing any of these campaign promises. And that's kind of the anti-establishment feeling. And then you had people who just supported him because of who he is as a leader.
If you're just joining us, this is The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Donna Givens-Davidson. She's the president of the Eastside Community Network. We're discussing how Detroit residents are reacting to Mary Sheffield's win and what she needs to do to follow through on her promises while in office. So, Donna, Mayor-elect Sheffield talked about doing a few different things to make sure that investment continues in Detroit. Here's her talking about taxes.
But we do have to start to explore different ways that we can bring revenue into the city of Detroit. And so whether it's a local sales option tax, a half penny tax that has been used in Columbus, Ohio, that has gained over $200 million in revenue that they've used for infrastructure and transit. I mean, these are things that we must explore. And as mayor, we will have a position within the mayor's office whose main responsibility is to grow our revenue and to grow our population.
Okay, so a local sales tax or a half penny tax. We don't have to get too much into the weeds of all this, but I'm wondering, Donna, how do you think these kinds of things will be received by residents?
Well, what was mentioned there was the entertainment tax or the ticket tax downtown. I was such a longstanding supporter of that. I mean, for 10 years, I've been advocating for that. And now it's actually, being talked about in responsible circles. So I'm super excited about that.
Could you tell me why you've been a supporter for so long of that?
Okay. Well, when you look at the amount of investment that is going into making downtown a destination place, there has to be a return on that investment to the citizens. And we know that there's a downtown development authority that captures the income tax. And we also know that residents in those areas, a lot of times who move into places like downtown, a lot of times they're just moving from home the first time, young people, and they're not necessarily claiming downtown, so they're not even necessarily paying their full income tax. When you look at the burden, the financial burden that having a beautiful downtown places on Detroiters who don't have access to the same amenities, how do we help reinvest in those communities? We can't say that we don't have enough police officers to respond to a resident who lives on the east side of Detroit when we have, one police officer for every 10 people after a concert downtown. It just doesn't make sense. And we can't say that we don't have enough money to fix a sidewalk in some neighborhoods while we are maintaining beautifully all of what the downtown property. I'm not anti-downtown. I love going there, but I think we need a mechanism because when people talk about two Detroits, it's not emotional. It's not moral, it's structural. It is how do we spend, how our tax dollars distributed. And so by establishing an entertainment tax, what we'll be able to do, what most downtowns across the nation in major cities do, is collect funds that help to, repay the public purse or reinvest in the public purse. I know that right now there's also talk about property tax reductions, which is important because we have really high property taxes, and we know we have a property tax crisis. The half penny tax is new to me. I just want to also get to that. It's new to me. I think it's a great idea. I think that Detroiters want good things. You have to remember that under Dennis Archer's administration, I don't remember the exact year, so it may be somewhere around 1996, when he agreed to stop residency. The legislature decided to stop residency, and the mayor of Detroit, Dennis Archer, agreed not to fight it in exchange for a reduction. He agreed not to fight that, and he also agreed to cut the income tax in half. And in exchange for that reduced income tax, we would have more revenue sharing come from the state. Well, we ended residency, we cut the income tax in half, and revenue sharing has been shrinking ever since, and we never had that promise fulfilled. In fact, I believe revenue sharing is being impacted by this budget. There are many people who don't like taxes. I don't think anybody likes taxes, quite frankly, but I think that we need taxes to maintain our public services. Yeah. And the difference between a tax and a fee, and a lot of times what we're doing is instead of taxing things, we have fees on a lot of things, like our parking tickets are really high, our water bills are really high. When we have fees instead of taxes, everybody has to pay the same amount regardless of their income, regardless of the value of their property. The value of these taxes, the half penny tax or the sales option tax, and the entertainment tax, is that people will pay based on their activity, based on their discretionary activity. It's not going to go on food. I don't believe the half penny tax will go on food. It will go on other goods and services purchased in the side of Detroit. And I don't think it's really going to be felt, but I think it will help restore some of the financial solvency to the city that we expect to be challenged by this current administration at the presidential level.
Donna, I want to talk about the city council and how Mary Sheffield will lead it. But before I do, I want to talk about other parts of her governing style. What do you think her leadership style is? What should we expect from her?
When people say that they're excited about having the first woman mayor.
Yeah.
It's not just because she's a woman, and that's great. Representation matters. I've got a 7-year-old granddaughter. But also because studies have shown that women tend to lead differently than men, right? We tend to be more collaborative. We tend to balance power. We're socialized that way, right? As girls, we're socialized to lead differently. And for so long when I was young, we thought, okay, if you're going to lead, act like a man. But I think, let's lean into being a woman as women do. I think that Mary Sheffield has led a very collaborative city council. She has listened to the voices of the community, partnered with community on some things. And again, there's no way any politician, any elected official is going to give you everything you want. But what you have felt as a leader in this community, as a member of the community, a lot of times is that you have a listening ear. And so when you look at a lot of the legislation or ordinances that come out of her offices, a lot of them have been more progressive than what you see coming out of the mayor's office and, frankly, what you see coming out of most male members of city council. I expect that to continue. She knows other city council members. I think she respects the role of city council, having served as president of city council, and that's important. We have a strong mayor form of government, and the mayor can ignore or overrule or minimize the role of city council if chosen. When you have a leader who respects the independent role of city council, then you have a more collaborative relationship, and that's what I hope to see.
Before I let you go, Donna, in the last 30 seconds or so that we have here, so you would describe Mary Sheffield's leadership as collaborative. Mm-hmm. What kind of coalition building does she still need to do? Where does she need to extend her arms that she hasn't yet in the last 30 seconds we have?
I think a lot of this is on us. Those of us in the community have got to rise to the occasion. I remember when JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The challenges we face as a community are large. And my question is, how will we step up? You have many beautiful coalitions all across the city. I belong to a community development coalition, Detroit 21. Let's be very active in trying to engage with her from the outset. All of the coalitions that exist, the community violence intervention coalitions, coalitions around school reform, already exist. She doesn't have to create anything. We just have to work with her to make change happen in our city.
Donna Givens-Davidson, president of the Eastside Community Network. Thank you so much for joining me on the Metro.
All right, thank you.
It's the Metro on WDET. Coming up next, federal support for temporary housing isn't guaranteed under the Trump administration. We'll find out how that's affecting local efforts to address homelessness in Detroit. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.